This is Terrence Andre Banks with Information Age Financial Solutions, coming to you again about the importance of understanding the pension problem that we're actually existing in. Came across this entire fantastic article from WirePoints, and it just puts a face to what I'm talking about to these, how severe this pension problem is. I'm going to dive right into the article. As always, I'm going to put a link inside the description. This is by Ted Dabrowski and John Klinger, and it came back in late October, but it was worth the time to definitely pay attention to see where the magnitude of this problem. Donna and Paula Worker aren't your typical seniors. After living the last 20 years in Florida, they recently retired to Illinois. The Parkers were born and raised in Rockford, Illinois. Don ran a housing painting business in the Rockford area for many years, while Paula worked in the unemployment office. In their late 30s, they moved to northern Wisconsin, where Don was in law enforcement. And 15 years later, they moved to Florida, where Don was self-employed as a handyman and Paula worked full-time in healthcare. When it finally came to retire, they decided to come home to be nearer to family. In 2016, they left sunny Florida for a place in Poplar Grove, Illinois, just outside of Rockford. Now, 3 years later, they're experiencing buyer's remorse. Not because of the weather, but because they don't know if they can afford to stay in Illinois. We decided to move back, so I started researching. I usually check things out pretty thoroughly. The only thing I didn't do was check into the political factors in the state, and I wish I had, because after being here for 3 years, I now see what I would never come back. Never with the political situation the way it is. We're getting by right now, kind of barely, but it seems like no one cares about people like us, seniors and lower income people, when it comes to all these new taxes and rising fees. Don reached out after attending a town hall in Rockford where CTBA debated Governor J.B. Pritzker's proposed progressive income tax. He was frustrated by the pro-tax arguments he kept hearing. When we met with Don, it became obvious he follows closely what goes on in the State House. He pulled out a long list of tax hikes that the state and his local governments are planning. He opened with Illinois' recent 19-cent gas tax hike and then proceeded to reel the rest of them in. We're talking about the bag tax, a progressive tax, a rain tax, a mileage tax, a TV tax, a beer and tobacco tax, a farm tax, a parking tax, a card tag, and tax. It's concerned to people like us, and it's not just me. It's many other seniors we've talked to and some lower income people. They don't know what they're going to do. They can't plan for the future. Can they stay? Do they have to leave the state? And we're in the same boat. We don't know either. All those new taxes will pile up on top of the burden Illinois already paid, one of the nation's overall highest burdens, according to a recent analysis by WalletHub. But the situation is even worse for people like Donna and Paula, whose fixed incomes don't grow much, if at all. If our real estate taxes go up, we're going to have to move. We're not going to have any choice. And that we don't want to do. I tell you, we don't want to move. The tax situation is impossible for many across the state. Illinoisans already pay the nation's second highest property tax when based on home values. As for, you can see it here. Yeah, I love charts. They show it right here. As for Governor J.B. Pritzker's progressive tax panacea, Don doesn't buy into the government's promises. To me, if anybody swallows the bait, hook, line, and sinker, they need to do some fact checking. It's not as rosy as they present it, if you look down the road a little bit. What disappoints Don the most is how politicians seem to ignore struggling seniors. He sent messages to Governor Pritzker and House Speaker Mike Madigan in the past, asking them what he and Paula should do. Don hasn't got a reply, not even an automatic email response. Do they care? Do any of them people like us? Do they want us to move? They want us out of the state? Why aren't people like us thought of? It's a very bad situation. Now, again, what Don and Paula is not taking into consideration is the tax situation is really due to the pension issue, and I've talked about this extensively, but I just wanted you to put a face to this, and I'm going to actually play a little bit from his article. From an article, they actually had a video clip of him talking, so let's listen a little bit.
Back in 2016. We're getting by right now, kind of barely, but when it comes to all these new taxes, raising fees and other taxes, people like us who cannot afford it, who are on a very strict, tight budget, we just simply can't keep up with it. What are we to do? I've been trying to keep track of a large list of taxes that have already come into play. The gas tax, which has already been imposed. They're talking about this bank tax. They're talking about the progressive tax. They're talking about a rain tax, a mileage tax, TV tax, beer and tobacco tax, which I assume some of that's already in play, a farm tax, a parking tax, a car trade-in tax. If many more of those go into effect, it's going to force us to have to leave Illinois and go to Wisconsin, Iowa, someplace else. Because we simply, on our budget, we simply cannot stay here and afford to pay that. The progressive tax, if anybody swallows that bait, hook, line, and sinker, I think they need to do some more fact checking, because it's not as rosy as they present it. Definitely not. If you just look down the road a little bit. One of the people that is for the tax, we went to a meeting, and the bottom line was, well, if we get that through by the year, I believe 2044, 2045, well, then things would kind of even out. I don't really care about 2044 or 45. I'm not even going to be here then. I'm worried about now. It seems like no one cares about people like us.
And just to play that, because I had to stop it for a second, is just to show the magnitude of where we're at and how things cannot be done the same way. You just put a face to it. Again, in the video they showed 1.5 million people who left the state, and that's definitely because of just the financials that's in that place. If you live in Illinois, it's your chance to get out. I'm sorry for that. It's just showing that we live in such different times, and this is becoming extremely impossible for people to exist. If this video has been any value to you, please subscribe, leave some comments. Until my next video, I'm out.